At Rathkamp Financial, we provide wealth management services that may ease clients' fears of financial loss and help them retire comfortably. Our greatest satisfaction comes from working with clients for many years and helping them realize their dreams.
Welcome, everyone, to our Litter Media Special Edition. I'm Mike Smith from Litter Media, and we have two guests, one in studio and one on Zoom from Cleveland area. From the Cleveland area, we have Rochelle McNorton, and in studio, Jeff Ragland. We're going to be talking about the Lee Walker Reunion, which is celebrating its centennial anniversary, 100 years, and that's going to be held September the 3rd in Ross County at the Bell Manor. To Rochelle and Jeff, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Thanks for having us.
Great to be here.
Rochelle was kind enough to share with us some biographical information, which we used as a news story on littermedia.com a couple of months ago about the Lee Walker reunion and basically the history of this family that actually started as slaves on a plantation many years ago down in the South. And Rochelle, if you could give us a little background on what you shared with us in verbal form as we get started here.
Okay, well, our family, the Lee family, started in Orange County, Virginia. Our ancestors were enslaved on the plantation of Thacker V. Webb. He committed suicide in 1843. According to the laws at that time, he freed all of his slaves, all 56 slaves in his will, which I have a copy of. Yeah. And during that time, because they were emancipated in 1843, they had 1 year to get out of Virginia. In his will, he had his brother, who was a doctor at that time, make the plans. All of this is in his will. And to find a free state for them to go. And at this time, around the 1840s, the state most picked from people from Virginia, emancipated slaves, was Ohio. At that time, Marietta would have been the capital. There's a lot of available land. So he gave them money, a lot of money. It was like $50 at the time, which at this time, I think it was something like, when I went to my financial planner, something like an astronomical figure, like in the thousand each person. Wow. He gave them everything. When he sold or made his will out, they had wagons and all the provisions. And the most important thing in the will was when they're emancipated, that also meant their children. So they made the journey, and I gave the article on their journey. It took about a month, and they come to Ohio in 1844 to Jackson County. And most of them then had the money, the luxury money to buy land. And I have in the back, that you can kind of see, I have a plat map of where they settled in Franklin County. And that's how it all begins. Yeah. In our family history. So they come here actually 1844. So our family is one of the unique African-American families. They're actually freed about 20 years before the Civil War.
Correct. Yeah. And
actually in Ohio, some of our ancestors, which I have traced, was in the Civil War. They were in the U.S. colored troops. That is another story that I want to, like a subset of our family that I want to bring, because the thing that happens is, even then, they realize they're going to get money. Yeah. At the end of the Civil War. And we actually have, and I think some of the land that our current family lives on is from the money that they bought during that time. And some of them, especially our second generation, they bought land. Right. They were farmers. So they bought the money that they got from the Civil War. And that's the start of our family in Ohio. We're very
Michelle, from your research, and Jeff, feel free to weigh in on this. Did some of the extended family get left behind because maybe they were not a part of this particular plantation?
So all the enslaved people of Webb were freed, period. They all came, all 56 slaves. This wasn't a massive plantation. Ironically, our slave owner's neighbor was James Madison. And he, if you ever go to Virginia, see Montpelier, which I'm going to include into my research because some of the slaves there married into our family, the Gilmore family. If you know anybody with Gilmore, they were the slaves on the Madison plantation, and they married into our family. Actually, as a news, one of the ancestors of the Gilmores is going to come to our reunion. Right. And he's coming from California.
Wow. Jeff, anything you want to weigh in on that?
Not at this time.
Jeff
she's covering everything.
He says like he's in court. Not well, right now, Your Honor.
His part is the reunion part. I'm the historian. Okay. And I've not totally shared everything because I'm in the process of trying to get a document together. And what's made it so difficult is I got to go back to 1844.
Yeah.
And I can't do so for our family. Like the Raglins, they took on their slave owner's last name. So every Raglan is all from the Raglan plantation. They took on the name. The Lees are not like that. They took all different kind of names.
Right.
Because they're not related. They're not blood related. So when they came to Ohio, how they picked their last names, I cannot tell you. Like, how did we pick Lee?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I'll never know. So that's why on all of the information that I gave you, when the 1850 census came out, and I was fortunate because on our slave owner's will, he lists all the names, but they're all first name. Remember, slaves don't have last names.
Right.
So when they come to the first census is 1850 Ohio, and I had to match up the people to the name, the last name they took, the Bells, whatever. Some of them, well, I have it on the name. All the people who either married into the family or took on a different last name. And I did that by the family relationships and other documentation like birth certificates and things like that to finally try to put some family groups together. Then you start adding the Walkers who married into the family, the Gilmores who start marrying into the family, the Raglins who start marrying family. And, you know, it's massive. That's why I'm still trying to group all these people together. And that's why all of those surnames is on the documentation to show you how much intermarriage into their family. But they're all there, not in 1844, but surely after 1865, other families come in like the Walkers and other people from, a lot of them from Virginia, but just different plantations in different counties.
Jeff, you were showing me before we started the interview, the will.
Yes.
A lot of the official papers that, as Rochelle was talking about, Thacker Webb left. And as part of the inventory of everything in his estate, it listed the names of these slaves,
yes,
human beings that are considered like horses or whatever else property.
Right, right. And from that, you know, I'm very proud of the fact that the family is very entrepreneur, business, education. We got doctors and lawyers and nurses, as Rochelle, businessmen, all through the line. And of course, we're going to have some bad eggs here and there, but overall, the amount of people who are successful is just very impressive. And we get that from our ancestors, from our aunts and uncles and grandfathers and great-grandfathers. So very proud of our family.
Now, you have with you some proclamations. One is from the state of Ohio to commemorate this 100th anniversary. A little bit of a glare there on the screen. I don't know if you can angle that a little different. This is from the Ohio State House.
Wow.
And that comes from the General Assembly, paying tribute to this century-old reunion that's going to be taking place September the 3rd. And our mayor of Chillicothe, Luke Feeney, also made a proclamation concerning this upcoming event, and Jeff is sharing that with us as well, showing that on screen here. There we go. I
Wow.
mean, anything that's been going on for 100 years is a big deal. But to get this extended family, as Rochelle was talking about, literally coming from all over the United States, that is really, really impressive.
And to
Yeah.
have documentation of all this, is so important. Or Rochelle couldn't find out all the things that she knows, but
Right.
has discovered. But they wrote it down,
Mhm.
which is awesome.
Rochelle, a lot of the information that you were able to obtain through your research, is this stuff that was kept in the family, or did you have to go to like county courthouses to get a lot of this?
Well, a lot of it is on ancestry. Like you start out with the basic census records, and you try to go back to, like, I went back to 1850. That's the first census that our family is going to be on, because before them, they're on the slave census just as slash marks. So 1850, they have a name. So actually, what started it all was a document from 1930 from Mr. Patrick Taylor, who was a speaker at one of our reunions. And he tells about the story, and he tells about the Thacker V Webb and how they came here. So I saw it because I was starting family history, not this line, but another line in my family. And I'm reading this, I'm going, oh my goodness. So I said, did you guys ever get the will? Did you ever actually get the will? And they're like, no. They looked at me like it was crazy. And they had some little itty bitty part of our family. I said, no, this is a gold mine. I said, I have to research this because no African American family, that's what we look for. That is the gold standard to get the will freeing. Most people are stuck with their grandparents, or maybe they don't even go back that far and they're stuck. And we're right in Ohio. So remember, wills and all these are legal documents. The census records are legal documents. You start getting birth records and marriage records. Well, of course, slaves were not married. So our first generation, they were already a family unit, but of course, it's not going to be a marriage record. So you have to assume they are a married, not a married couple, but a couple. So there are no marriage records, no birth records. I have to only guess by what they put on the census record. And our first generation was born before 1800. So of course there's no, but you start getting the children, their marriage records, where they live. I have a plat map right back here of 1875, and you start putting things together. That's what makes African American history a little bit more difficult, because of the lack of legal records to a certain point. Now, I will say this, it's not in our family. Some slave owners kept meticulous records, like who was born, when they changed their name. Sometimes they even had when they purchased them, which it would really be something, but not in our family so far. So now, if you have, so that was kind of like a family record when I saw this document, and I just went by it. I said, oh, please let this be accurate. I just prayed. So I had to go to Salt Lake City, which has the largest genealogical library. I went there and I looked for the will. I went online, found out where it was, what film it was. It was in Virginia. It's a Virginia record, Virginia will. Went under Virginia, looked for the will, and I got a location. And when I pulled out the microfilm, I just cried, because I couldn't believe that it was actually there. And then when I started reading it, and let me just show you what it looks like.
Rochelle will be coming back up here with this will.
Okay, if you can get close.
Yes.
See that it's written in this longhand.
Yeah.
And I had to sit up here and try to make sense. And you talk about run-on sentences, it's like, oh my goodness, but this is a legal document.
Yeah, exactly.
And I had to sit up there and squint and try to read it. And lo and behold, I came on the part that had my ancestors on it. I just cried because they had names, and I just had to go by, try to decipher what the names were. And then when it came to 1850, match those names up to people and then to family and then their children. And that's how it started. But it all started because someone, and I give high praise to, in 1930, typed out the remarks during that reunion in 1930. And it was accurate. Because a lot of times it's like, but it was actually accurate. They had the right county, the right state, the slave owner's name. A will is a legal document. I was able to find it and bring it to the reunion. That's what started the slum. And I got this back in 2010. So I've been researching this family since 2010, but it started getting the will. And I just want to say, from a genealogical standpoint, because I talked to my other genealogical friends, I belong to the African American Genealogical Society in Cleveland. They said the difference of your family, Rochelle, as opposed to just people getting together for a reunion, is you have the historical background.
Right.
A lot of people do get together and say, hey, it's 100, but you don't have these documents.
Exactly.
But the difference in our family, we can actually prove beyond a shadow of a doubt where we came from and where we're at. And I want to say this, just to throw it out here. I've already reached out to an editor of Family Tree magazine. This is a national magazine that comes out, and one of the editors in here that lives right down the road, actually, not far from me. I'm trying to get her face here. She's going to do a article for us.
Great.
And she wants, after the reunion, we have to get together, and they want to know how we planned it.
Mm-hmm.
And I also reached out to OGM, which is an Ohio genealogical magazine that I wrote an article before, and the editor just contacted me 2 days ago. She wants me to do an article about how we got this reunion together. And if at some point, if I still have a brain after all of this, and I write an article about our family, we'll be one of the very few, not African-American families, but American families. I'm talking American families in Ohio.
Exactly.
That how we did this. So that's like the cherry on top of the cake that they took on. They saw what we were doing and they wanted in an article. And it's with the inspiration that other families do it.
Sure.
And other African-American families show an authentic family, just farmers. There's no rich people in our family, no Thomas Jeffersons, no, not James Madison on James Madison.
He was just a neighbor.
He was just a neighbor. But you just Google some point Montpelier, because right now the descendants of those slaves are trying to tell their story. And that whole plantation now is like a national place where you can go, and they're trying to keep it up and whatever. So just check that out. But the other thing is, right across the street is a church.
Mm-hmm.
And right across the street, which I have pictures of, is an actual, right now, it's in the national park, the cabin that the Gilmores lived in. When I saw that, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
It's a national park right across from the lands that most likely our ancestors were on. And I'm going to take pictures of that today and bring that, because they actually tell about the Gilmore family. So I took pictures, not really realizing who they were. Mm-hmm. Come to find out, they married into our family. And he's coming, the descendant is coming to our reunion.
Gotcha. Jeff, with the reunion coming up on the 3rd, again, this is at Bell Manor, and this reaches out to many counties in our area. Who knows, maybe even people outside of Ohio. I know there was a large African-American population in the Lancaster, Ohio area, but I think most of that was after the Civil War. But reaching out to potential family members, are they invited to this reunion?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We're planning a big get together, and just anybody who, even just friends, are welcome to come. Be glad to have them. One thing I was thinking about, was we have two members of our reunion who is over 100 years old.
Oh my.
One is 106, and he's planning on being there, and the other one is 101, I believe, and I'm sure she's going to be there.
They may steal the show.
Yeah, yeah, and sharp.
Yeah.
They're both sharp. They're not,
Wow.
just here. They're, can talk. I mean, speak and give you some history on things and tell you about the past reunions. But it's always been the reunions have always been a fun time. One of my favorite reunion was in Springfield, and I just remember probably 9 or 10, and they had a band there, and they had a dance contest. So my brother and 3 of my cousins, and one cousin was showing the steps and what to do. It was a hot mess, but that's something that I remember. And it was Lee Menifee, Dan Menifee, Carl Hitchens, Jim Ragland, and myself. And that's just a memory of the reunion. So that's what we hope to do, is just continue to make memories for people, as little kids that they just will never forget.
Right.
So do guests need to just show up, or do they need to contact somebody ahead of time for reservations?
It'd be nice to contact my sister Jill. She's taking the RSVPs. Jill Ragland, 740-253-2943. If you want to come, please give her a text or a call so that she can write you down, so we can kind of plan the food, because we are planning a dinner that my nephew is going to prepare for us. So we need to know how many to prepare for.
And lastly, on the 3rd, what is the time frame of the whole event?
12 to 5.
Okay.
Yeah, get together at 12 and just kind of visit around. I think 1:30 we're supposed to eat. Around 2:30 we're going to have a meeting, which we have every reunion, which I think has been part of it that has kept us together. Someone, kind of directing the show for that period of time. And we've had many presidents over the years. I served for a while, and just we're thankful for all those folks who've kept it going.
We are out of time. I wish we could go on. I love history. This has been a joy for me just to be sitting in here listening to this. We appreciate everything you've shared. The story that we had originally on littermedia.com, we'll bump that up in order and probably attach this interview to it as just one of many ways that you can see this interview if you're just tuning in late, and you can get that original information that Rochelle sent us for that story. Again, talking with Rochelle McNorton and Jeff Ragland about the 100th centennial consecutive Lee Walker reunion at Bell Manor in Ross County on September the 3rd. Thanks so much for joining us, and we hope that you have a tremendous turnout.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
For Litter Media Live, I'm Mike Smith.